the Tuesday, September 8th, 2018 meeting of the City Ann Arbor Park Advisory Commission. It is a little after 4 o'clock, 4:08 to be more exact, and we're here in council chambers. Colin, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gallardi?
Here.
Commissioner Santa Croce?
Here.
Commissioner Morrison?
Here.
Commissioner Borgsdorf?
Here.
Commissioner Ramaswamy?
Here.
Commissioner London?
Here.
Commissioner Apple? Commissioner Kraut? You have a quorum and you have Councilmember Grant.
Thank you. Item C, approval of the agenda that's before you and was posted on Legistar. Changes, additions.
I move approval.
Well, I don't think we never do
don't?
that for the
Okay.
agenda. I think we determined that wasn't required by Robert's rules. But while you're on the subject, item D, approval of minutes from the Tuesday, July 17, 2018 meeting. Changes, additions, or motions?
Move
Bob?
approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Item E, public commentary, 3 minutes. Is there any member of the public who'd like to speak?
Thank you.
Welcome.
I hope you will all be using your microphones since I forgot to bring my hearing aids. And in the interest of your hearing me, I'm going to pull this down a little bit. Can you hear me better now? Good. My name's Ethel Potts. I live at 1014 Elder Boulevard. Put my glasses on. I have a concern about the parking lot lease with the U of M in the parkland on Fuller Park. This parkland has been and would be used again as a soccer field if it were not being used as a parking lot. I urge you to have these leases renewed annually so you and we have a chance to consider this issue every year, not just automatically renewed based on past decisions. The additional funds I'm sure would be very useful, but many of us who regularly vote to support park millages want to keep our parks as parks once we as a community have purchased them as parks. I think we have reasons to worry that other parks in the city might also be leased at some point for some other uses than parkland. I hope not. We want to trust the Parks Commission to carefully manage our parks. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Any other member of the public like to speak? Welcome.
Welcome. My name is Joe Hood, and I'm speaking about the same thing, about the parks. I'm hoping you don't renew the lease for the parking lots. They're in the parks. They don't belong in a park. The hospital in the future is actually going to move down to Pfizer, so why build a garage there now? That's all I have to say.
Thanks for coming. Welcome.
Hello. I'm Rita Mitchell. I live at 621 Fifth Street, and I sent you a message today, and I appreciate your reading it, and hope that you will insert some language in this lease. I'm not in favor of renewing it, but if it's going to be renewed, it should reference the parks as being what's leased. And so I'll appreciate your making that action. And also, just in general, I agree with what Epi said. We need to consider these each time. And so I ask you that when a lease is brought forward, that you not make it something that is automatically renewed or can be renewed at an administrative level, but allow that to have the public discussion here at PAC and also in City Council with our council representatives. We'll really appreciate that. And that's it for now. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. Any other member of the public?
Just one
You can have a second bite at the apple.
added phrase, why are you not having a public hearing on this? This is of public interest to people who support all of our parks. It involves money, it involves a change of use. I think it deserves a public hearing.
Thank you. Any other member of the public? Seeing none, we will move on. Special presentations, item F1, the skate park annual update. Trevor Staples, thank you for coming, Trevor.
Thanks for having me. I'm Trevor Staples. I'm representing the Friends of the Ann Arbor Skate Park.
Some of you know me, some of you don't. I also work for the Tony Hawk Foundation, administering Built to Play grants, which are in Southeast Michigan and Western New York. So I get to work skate parks and volunteer skate parks. Every year we come, about every year, and do a sort of update on what's going on with the skate park. I thought since it's been a while since this whole thing has started that I'd also give a little background on what had happened in the past. I know my presentation needs to be short, so I'll keep it as brief as possible. I do have a little presentation, and then at the end we have some new things going on and an event coming up next month that I hope you all can come to also. So some of our guiding principles are basically to advocate for skateboarding and skate parks, to get everyone involved as much as possible. Inclusion, we do lots of events to help all kinds of people get out there. As I was talking to some of you earlier, you've noticed that there are 70-year-old people skating with 7-year-olds, and you can never tell who's teaching who. It's a pretty cool situation out there. So we abide by those guiding principles as we're making decisions for the skate park along with the city. Our board of directors has changed a little bit in the past year. Josh Meisler is still our president, and then we have some folks who stepped down from the board after the skate park got built. Nina Juergens, Crystal Partington, and myself, we were all part of the original board, and we've come back on the board to help into the future years here. And if you'll notice, Max Davis is on there. Max Davis was actually in high school when we started this project. He was one of the ones who got us involved with the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation because he served on the youth council, and now he serves on our board of directors also as an adult, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so I wanted to give some history of the skate park, and as I was researching all this, there's a long history, there's a lot of stuff, so I added a lot of things in there. I'm sort of just going to touch on some items, and then if you have questions, you can ask me. But we started all this back in 2005 when Doug Song presented at a pros plan hearing to talk about the need for a skate park. Shortly after that, he started having kids and sort of fell off the radar as far as the skate park goes. As you know, he didn't fall off the radar completely. And then in 2007, we started back up, started holding some meetings, met with park staff, presented to the PAC, and really started the ball rolling on getting a skate park built. 2008, so we started having some public meetings. In May of 2008, we had a PAC meeting here to determine the location of the skate park, and it was packed so much that the side doors had to be open. There weren't enough seats for everybody. It was pretty amazing, and thanks to the PAC, they unanimously approved Veterans Memorial Park for the site of the skate park, and then that went on to council, who also unanimously approved it. Also during that time, we did develop funds at the Ann Arbor Area Community Foundation, one for the design build and one for the maintenance endowment. In 2009, of course, we worked with Vault to Midnight and raised about $10,000 at a skate art show to help raise the money for the skate park. We also developed a memo of intent between the city and the skate park, sort of solidifying our partnership together to work together into the future. We became a nonprofit in 2010, held some design charrettes, and that was when the Washtenaw County Parks Commission pledged $400,000 towards the skate park. They were our first real big supporter financially. We probably couldn't have done this without them. That was a huge amount of money. And now they've continued, after seeing the success of our skate park, they've continued, and they're helping Ypsilanti also now with a $250,000 grant for their skate park that we're working to develop right now. So that continues on. In 2011, there was a pros plan survey. It showed the need for skateboarding and skate parks. We got a Tony Hawk Foundation grant for $5,000 towards the skate park, and we were also awarded the DNR Natural Resources Trust Fund grant, thanks to park staff and some people on our board who applied for that grant for $300,000. That pretty much capped our fundraising, and we were ready to move on. 2013, we started construction, and then in 2014, we opened the skate park with, as you probably know, Tony Hawk came, Andy McDonald, Mark Davenport, some other pros, and we really like the Life is More Than a Walk in a Park series of posters that came out after that. That was pretty cool. I just left this as public-private partnership. We really appreciate the support of the city and the Parks Commission in helping make decisions as we go along. You know, as skateboarders, we want to make sure that decisions that are made work for skateboarding, and we also want to make sure that things are done in a park sense. We're not parks developers or anything, and that's where we appreciate your help along the way too. There is a skate park advisory commission that meets sort of unofficially right now that park staff and I are working on getting back together. The memo of understanding, I think, says we need to meet 2 times a year, and so we talk about things that are going well, things that need to be improved with the skate park. Some of the programs we do, you may have heard of. We have a program called All Girls Skate, which is second and fourth Sundays during the warmer months, and that's where we have female instructors who come out, and we offer equipment, skateboards and pads and helmets, and girls and women can skate together and get supported and learn how to do things without those nasty teenage boys around, for lack of a better way to say it. It's a great thing. We have probably several dozen people that come out every couple weeks to that, and all are welcome to come to that. I think we're funding that ourselves now, but we did have Ann Arbor Community Foundation Youth Council grants for that in 2015 and 16. We do a skate park scholarship every year where we give out scholarships to low-income kids who need equipment, and the whole package they get is a complete skateboard and pads and a helmet, and they don't have to do anything for it. They just get it if they want it, which is great. We gave away 25 of those last year. Some of the ongoing programs that we have going on at the skate park are Pick Up and Skate. It's just where we gather people together to help clean up the skate park. We have bake sales, which the kids like to help with, and families, contests and other events, and we also like our partnership with Give 365. We work with them to help get things going at the skate park and clean up at the skate park also. The agreement with the city says we need to have an annual event every year for fundraising for the maintenance of the skate park. In our maintenance endowment at the Community Foundation, I believe we have about $120,000 that we raised to help with the maintenance of the skate park. And we appreciate the PAC's interest in helping with the maintenance of the skate park too. This year, I think you heard from Josh Meisler, our president, about the interest and need for lights at the skate park to extend the hours in the winter months, fall, winter, and spring months. Next month, we're having an event to kick off the fundraising for that as we work with park staff to figure out all the details and how that might work and if it'll work. So that's going to be on Saturday, October 20th. We've decided to have our first annual Ann Arbor Skate Park Film Festival where people can submit 3-minute skate videos, and we'll have a juried selection for the winners. They'll have to be made at the Ann Arbor Skate Park and some other criteria in there, but it should be a lot of fun. And then that night we'll show all the movies, well, within reason, and announce the winners for the contest. And we'll also have music, contests, and things like that. So that's going on then. And here are some ways you can contact us. We're on all the social media. I believe that went a lot faster than I thought. So cool.
Questions?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
questions, yeah.
I thought you were done. You got more?
Oh, and by the way,
How did you
this
do that?
wasn't
That's
from
my first
skateboarding.
That was my first question. How did that happen?
This wasn't from skateboarding. Surgery.
Other questions?
It was all that gnarly typing.
Bob? Yeah, what is the maintenance every year? Is it, I know it must vary, but
It varies. Colin, you want to try to answer that?
Yeah, so in the time that it's been open, it goes from kind of a couple $1,000s a year up to maybe 10 or so, I think was the higher end of it. It's a resolution that we come to PAC with every year and say that if we are able to absorb it in the operating budget, that makes sense, so their endowment can grow. So when there is a more expensive repair, we're in a good position to actually deal with it then.
And we are looking at some things like sealing the concrete that's getting a little worn in some busy spots that may cost a little more, that we're able to take out of the maintenance endowment for that. We're getting some estimates on that right now.
Others?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I've driven by many times to shop or sometimes take my kids to skate there, and it is always busy. So I want to know, how long is usually the typical season? I've seen people try to shovel snow and try to skate even then. So how long are we maintaining this or utilizing this space?
So when you say how long are we maintaining it, the city doesn't maintain it in the winter, but the skaters come out and they do shovel. And we actually had banners made that we put up that say don't use salt because that can eat away at the concrete. So people can use the facility, the skate park, all winter long, and they do. It's just a matter of how much snow and ice there is. So it's like running, I guess, jogging. You can do it all through the winter as long as there's not a lot of ice. And the nice thing about the pavement is it's extra hard, smooth concrete, and it dries out really fast. So when you shovel it, the sun hits it, warms it up, it dries out. And you'll even see sometimes in the bowls, people shovel everything to the middle of the bowl and then skate around the piles of snow, which is kind of cool. So yeah, so as long as it's not too icy. So most of the year, people are skating out there.
Thanks for coming.
I just have a comment. I just want to say, you guys have created such a great, positive community there. I have little kids, and my son is just starting to get into taking a scooter there, and it's just, everyone is so respectful of him. He's almost 7, and so it's really nice to see that people make space for even younger kids to use that area.
Yeah, and part of that is the design. We took a lot of time for the design, the flow of the park. And part of it is just people learn the etiquette of using a skate park. It's funny when people first started asking about how does this work, you know, we tell them, oh, well, you take turns. Easily that works. So yeah, it's pretty cool the way it works. It's pretty amazing. I thought about that the other day when I rolled through the whole park, and there's lots of people there, and I didn't run into anybody. And it's like magic.
Thanks for coming. Mike?
My only other comment, and this is a carryover from I also sit on the Environmental Commission. We had a interesting presentation on dark sky lighting and how it helps to not impact the surrounding neighborhood and also preserves nighttime safety by not dilating your eye as you approach where you are going. So I just say this because it's something that makes a lot of common sense, but yet people are not actively doing it. So this is my little soapbox here to say, as you think about lighting, please consider dark sky lighting to reduce impacts on the neighborhood, other park users, and make it safer as well.
Yeah, and that's great to know. You know, Colin and the friends have just started diving into, we got one sort of estimate and plan for what it might look like, just as a starting point, but we hope to do any environmentally friendly things we can do through the lighting of the skate park.
Yeah, we would also certainly have a look to see if there's an opportunity to do like a grant for solar lighting, just, I mean, again, with kind of the visibility of the park, I think it'd be a good place to promote it if it's an option.
Definitely.
Or just some string lights out of the dollar store.
Christmas lights.
Christmas lights. I think that's it. Thanks so much for your work
Okay.
and for coming.
All right, thanks for having us.
Moving on, item G, new business. G1, resolution to recommend approving the Connecting Communities grant application to the Washtenaw County Parks and Recreation Commission for $100,000 for upcoming repairs to the boardwalk in Riverside Park. Colin.
Yeah, that is pretty much what the subject says. We have a portion of the trail, the border-to-border trail. There is an attachment that you have of the map there. And this is the portion between essentially the Argo Cascades and Riverside Park. And there was an evaluation done on the boardwalk a little bit over a year ago. And it showed kind of what we suspected by, if you are out there already, it's beginning to sag in certain areas. It's deteriorated, so it will require a replacement. We have the work for that is actually out right now, so there should be construction responses by October 18th, I believe, is when the bids are going to be due for that. But we expect the costs for construction to be roundabout $200,000. And the grant through the county is an opportunity to offset a little bit of that construction cost. The county has a Connecting Communities program that is for improvements to the border-to-border trail. Realistically, in the past, oftentimes it goes towards a new part of the border-to-border trail, but we thought that we would apply for this as it is really such a key component of it. And perhaps if there is funding available, we may get some. That's what we're hoping.
What's differential settlement? Different areas settle it? Just
Yeah.
what it says it
Yeah.
should be.
That's, yep.
Questions?
When it goes, yeah.
Motions?
Move acceptance?
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Questions for staff?
I will mention that this particular portion was a wreck 20 years ago. And you guys have been doing a great job with Band-Aids and bubble gum, piecing it together for years and years. So I think it is money well spent, particularly in terms of how much it does connect everything now.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It is a heavy used piece that has to stay there.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item G2, resolution to recommend approval of the Fuller Park parking lot land lease with the University of Michigan. Colin?
Yeah, so this is the lease that comes to you almost annually between the city and the University of Michigan for parking at Fuller Park parking lots. In a nutshell, there are two paved parking lots, one on the side of the pool, the other on the side closer to the train tracks. There's also a unpaved portion of the parking lot. And what the agreement allows for is at times when the parks do not need the parking, at those times it's leased to the University of Michigan. At the busiest times in the summer, when we have the pool open and we have events happening like a lacrosse event or soccer events or just a lot of activity and games on the fields in that evening, it is all of the parking spaces can be utilized for park use. So, you know, I think it's important just to note that there is a need for the parking at that site for park use. All the lease does, as it has done for kind of a number of years, is in the time when Parks is not using it, it's a lease with the university and they pay a rent for it. That's what's before you. It's exactly the same thing as last year with the exception of the dates, and there's an increase in the amount the university is paying by 3%. We asked for a one-year lease with 2 renewals. The only reason that we do this is because what came to you last year, or what comes to you this year, is essentially what came to you last year and the year before. So every time we do it, we have to obviously go to PAC and go to council, and it takes a little bit of time.
Questions for staff, discussion?
I'm curious about the renewals, I guess. So with the two, is that what we are doing right now, is a renewal, or is this the new
No.
lease?
This is a new lease. The lease that council approved last year was a one-year lease. The resolution that staff took to council last year was a one-year lease with, I believe it was 5 administrative renewals. Council said, no, we won't approve it for that. We will approve it for a one-year lease. So that's why we're back here today.
So here's the thing I never understood is most of our big parks have parking lots on them, right? that we need in order for the park to work. So I mean, I appreciate the concern, but I don't understand the substance of the objection. We don't have, if we didn't lease it, we still couldn't turn it back into park because we need the parking to support the rest of the park. So I was in favor of the 5-year administrative renewal. I'm certainly in favor of the 3. It's not a question, it's just a resource that we don't use at certain times, but we need for park operations that we make a little money on. So I'm in favor of the resolution as it stands.
Yeah, Colin, I want you to explain that again for me, because that's what I always thought, was that there's so much happening out at the parks that we have to park. I mean, the cars.
So there's a very
Right.
heavy use in the summer. If you go between Memorial Day and 2 weeks after Labor Day, when the pool closes now, if it's warm and the pool is busy and there's events happening at the soccer fields and the lacrosse fields, there's a need for all of the parking that is there. Now, there is obviously not a need for that parking in January.
Right.
We have, I think it's 10 or 12 spots on the far north side of the park that are reserved for parking if you wanted to go out for a walk with your dog or something like that. But it's not needed at that time for parks, so that's when we rent it. But even at those times in the off-season, it's still there for park use on the weekends.
So it sounds like the lease was structured based on when the use would be most beneficial to the city?
Yes, I mean, it is written first and foremost to make sure that the parking which is needed by the parks to operate is considered first. Everything else then.
So
That's,
what-
I guess my question then, I'm not, where is that in the lease? Is it just,
Where is what
Exhibit
release?
A?
I'm sorry.
I think it's about the hours in the
Yeah.
lots.
that,
What he's talking
right, the
about.
use, well, I don't see necessarily, and maybe I just, you know.
I think it's in the exhibit.
Yeah,
Exhibit
it's-
A, let's look at Exhibit A.
Mhm.
Exhibit A is just a map that identifies all 3 parking lots, right?
No.
Lot A,
No.
Lot B, Lot C.
Exhibit A, it's got page 6 on
Yeah,
the
it's on
body. The
page
heading
6.
is property at the very top of the page. And it has prescribed hours.
Okay, thank you for this tour, but I do think it's important that I understand what
Yeah.
I'm approving.
It's got, here's my understanding of it. It's got prescribed hours for the 3 different lots in 3 different ways that matches to is the inverse of the needed use for park functions.
Thank you for that
Right.
clarification.
Yep. It describes in 2 places, actually on page 6, at the top under property, it describes when it will actually be leased to the university. And then on page 8, it states when it's actually used by the city, which we could in theory do the first without printing the second, but it's important that it's there. So that's why it's there. And it was amended, last year when we came, it was amended to make sure that we had sufficient parking spots for the extended season at Fuller Pool, because it used to read after Labor Day that certain things would then become available for university parking. We're keeping a portion of the lot that we didn't used to at that time for that purpose.
Okay. My other question, I guess, is with regard to process for next year, for example. So if we approve this, leases goes through, and the university says, okay, we want to exercise our option to renew. At that point, I mean, there's nestled in there in the lease language, you know, upon mutual agreement. So at some point, the city has to mutually agree or not to that renewal. But from a process perspective, is that something that would be, what's described as just a staff approval? Or is this something that would come back to PAC and to city council?
Yeah, so that's what's called the administrative renewal. So that is essentially council granting the administrator or through his staff to renew the lease under the terms and conditions approved by council.
And I would imagine if all that land down there became, and the pool was subject to a natural disaster and was unusable, so we didn't need the parking, or if the pool's shut one summer and we didn't need that extra parking, that staff wouldn't renew that portion of the lease. I mean, that's, to me, that's appropriate administrative discretion.
So my question is, what is the feedback that we're hearing? Is there a concern with additional traffic, or is there nuisance occurring with off hours when we're not utilizing it for parks usage? So what is the concern that you're hearing from or from residents about the university use?
I think what was shared at public commentary is probably a fairly good summation of it. There's a concern that in the parks, the primary use of a piece of land is a parking lot, and there's a preference that it be used for green space instead, which is an entirely understandable viewpoint. In this case, I think that the parking is needed for park operations.
Yeah, you couldn't use the green, and that's what I had trouble, you couldn't use the green space.
Yes, I guess maybe I was taking it as it should be only used for parks use, and that was the concern, not that it was for green space, and it shouldn't be something
Yeah,
that we.
I sort of heard
That's how I took it. I just wanted to clarify what the concern.
I hear it the same way. I think I heard like probably three concerns. One is highest and best park use would be green space. If you can't have that, if it's gotta be a parking lot, it ought to be devoted for park use. And a third concern is around the process, at least I understood it, that folks want to be able to offer opinions on this annually as opposed to 3 years from now.
And I have no problem with that.
And so that's, I mean, perhaps if I could offer a friendly amendment to see if this dog will hunt. What if we strike out the sentence, now, sorry, I'm trying to scroll back to my, probably easier if you have the piece of paper. in front
Yeah,
of
it
you.
would be just on page 1 that we would.
Delete the reference to the option to renew.
Exactly.
Or, yeah, I mean, rephrase it such that it's got.
Yeah,
sort of
exactly. So
public
if you were
process.
to go on page 1, 1A is the term for the first year, and then the second paragraph is the university has the option to renew, would just strike that entire paragraph.
But let's not work with the lease, because the city, I think we gotta worry about the resolution. So the proposal I hear is, I guess you're not even making a motion right now, are you, or are you?
Or looking at the whereas.
I'm putting,
you're amending
I'm
it.
trying to
in
put
an
some
embryonic
process on
state,
it.
yeah, but so.
So I'm looking at with respect to the do you have the draft resolution there in front of you?
I have it here. It'd be very easy. The last whereas,
I just follow the process. So what I hear is a motion to strike everything after shall be 1 year.
Right.
So to strike with an option to administratively renew the lease for 2 additional 1-year terms. Is that what you're making?
Yeah, I would move that we strike that second clause of the last whereas. So it just says that the term would be for 1 year.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Discussion.
I have a comment on that. I think this keeps coming back to us every year, and I don't know that it's the most efficient use of our time. It's the highest and best use of our time and council's time to continue rehashing this every year. If we can approve it now and let it go through the administrative approval, we gain efficiencies. We're discussing it now as it should be discussed, absolutely, but I don't know that I feel we need to do this every year.
I concur.
I also concur. I don't, again, I mean, if you would have to lose the use of the pool and all the park grounds in order to say we should turn this back in the green space. I understand the need for process, but I don't think it should be irrational process.
Is it being done every year because of the rate changes? I know that is that why it's?
That's my question too. Is there anything that's different about this that would necessitate discussion other than the fact that this now contains an option and last year's did not contain the option? And the fee increase?
yeah, if I'm understanding you correctly, is the language the same as the lease which is expired? The answer is yes. All it includes, or am I not understanding your question?
No, you're understanding it perfectly. I think,
Yep.
you know, I think Paige's point is well taken in terms of what substantively would change were this to come back to us next year? I think the answer is nothing about the agreement itself would change.
And it hasn't in my 4 years.
Same.
Every time it comes up, it's the same.
We've seen it.
It's the same discussion. You need the parking to support the park. Why are we talking about it?
And it's not the spirit in which the motion is.
No, I
given
understand.
To suggest that we shouldn't, like, that this is somehow a hard question every time. I think oftentimes it's an easy question. But I don't know if it's gonna be an easy question 2 years from now. I don't know what the park use will be, and I don't want the university to be able to say, sorry, we've exercised our option, you've gotta give us use of that space in what seems like now is off our time. But I don't know what kind of programmatic changes or use of that space changes might take place. I'm just thinking maybe it's more prudent, even though it's more work for us, to look at it again next year. That's the spirit in which the motions are.
Further discussion on the motion.
Let me suggest one thing, though, to you, Steve, which is that the lease also contains a provision whereby we can terminate it on 120 days' notice, I believe. Is that right?
Yep.
And so, like, at any time?
No, it's
So-
No, wait,
Or is
hold
it
on.
after the first?
12 months.
After the first year. So at this time next year,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have to then, you know.
And
But I guess-
presumably, we would see such changes in the park use coming with enough
Right,
notice that
right.
that
No,
could
that's
be
right.
sufficient warrant.
But don't we also have the option of not to just renew it?
Well, staff could, but we wouldn't be here talking about it.
If we don't renew it, what happens? I mean, they can't use the park? They can't use it.
They can't
We
park
lose
it, and
94.
so it just sits empty, except for
lose
when we
that
need it for
revenue.
parks.
And then we lose that
We
revenue.
lose the revenue.
Further discussion on the motion.
The motion
The
from,
motion
to strike
to
out.
strike the administrative rule. Further discussion on that. I'm just trying to put process on this. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to strike that language?
Aye.
2. All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Abstentions? The motion does not carry. Back to the resolution itself. Further discussions, or is there a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, questions for staff? Please.
Just a little historical perspective, since I've been through a ton of these. Now, it might not seem like a lot of money in our budget because we're doing relatively well. As a city, a number of years ago, during the recession, when the parking revenues were a third of what they are today, or proposed to be today, that was the difference between keeping a facility open or closed. So that money was keeping the Fuller Pool open. Because we were looking at very difficult decisions about whether or not we needed to close Mac Pool, whether or not we needed to close the senior center. And that $30,000 was make or break between keeping a facility open or having staff lose their jobs. So it might not seem like a lot of money, but someday it could be.
Right. I also like to just say,
Please.
no, I know the cost of operating a pool is very expensive. And I know we had repairs this year. If you have a cold season or anything occurs, people don't go to the pool, and then it could be a loss. It could, so to Julie's point, and then in regards to the comment earlier I made about parking lots, we have multiple parks that are walkable parks, and some parks that are used as fields and as skate parks and as farmers markets. So there's different uses for our parks and different types of parks, and I think for the need of this area, if we didn't have this facility, have this parking facility, we would have very angry
Residents.
customers in our area, our residents, who come and utilize this as a park space for their families and over the summer and whatnot. So I'm in favor of continuing it, but I do, if we are approving this resolution, we are approving it saying that we want to do this annually, is that correct? Because I know that was another piece that we had talked about.
No, what we're saying is we're
3
gonna,
years.
we don't see this again for 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Unless something, staff can always bring it back to us. Nothing
Okay.
stops
I
that.
just wanted to make sure, I know we've been going around in circles. Okay.
Further discussion. All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Resolution carries. Item H, commission proposed business. Is there any? There isn't. Item I, report from the Parks and Recs manager.
I do have a handful of updates for you today. Since we're speaking about the pool at Fuller, I will say we were open for an additional 2 weeks. We had a really, really nice last day. On Sunday, September 16th, we had 392 people visit just that one day. At the time that we were open at Fuller, we had almost 2,000 visits over those 2 weeks. So it is really being heavily utilized at that time. On kind of the polar end of that, the ice rink is open at Vets and people are happily skating. So move from one to the other. I did want to give just a brief update on the border-to-border trail feasibility study between Vandermeer Park and also Barton Nature. No, Vandermeer Park and Barton Nature area. Yeah, that's right. In, I think it was this spring, we had the county came and the city entered into kind of a memorandum of understanding with the county to pursue a feasibility study to see what it would cost to connect the Vandermeer Park to the Barton Nature area via a tunnel as the most likely solution. There was also, as a part of that study, a look at if we were to pave a portion of the Barton Nature area for accessibility, how that would look. So the county put that out to bid. The city was a contributor. We had kind of a cap that we were going to spend, which was $12,500. The county put it out for bid, and we got 3 responses and have selected the firm, which is actually the one which is working on the berm opening for Allen Creek. So there's a real familiarity both with the city and some of the struggles, and also a familiarity with the railroad, which is really what the consultant in this case is really going to need to be extremely solid on to move this ahead. So that agreement was signed last week from the county, and work will begin. So there's going to be a lot of research and looking into stuff that has been done. I expect there to be kind of answers by perhaps late spring as to what a potential cost could be for that connection. And then at that time, all of the entities which have skin in the game, if you will, are going to see how it can be funded. Because we are at a position where I think there's more funding opportunities for a project like this than there has been in kind of a number of years.
How long of a tunnel? How long of a, I mean, ballpark, I don't. We've walked there, right? Like
Yeah,
100 yards?
something around that.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it isn't going to be cheap, that's for sure. I will say though that the consultants that were hired by Washtenaw County, which was the Bergman Group, I want to say, the award for that was $182,000. So we contributed the $12,500. I think we're getting a lot of information for that. So
Great, thank you.
I have a couple other things if I can
please, go ahead.
update you on. In the packet today, there was a transmittal that had an example of communications for the millage renewal. So all of that is there just kind of for your perusal. It's on the websites. We're starting to share that information through e-blasts and other methods that we have so that there's an awareness as we head up to the renewal, but the examples are all in the packet for you there. I also had a staff update. I think all of you have heard from Scott Spooner at some time. Scott Spooner is the golf course superintendent for the city, or I should say he was. He has been promoted to be the manager of the park operations maintenance for the city, which, and that will report to me. He has done, yeah, exactly. He has really done just an outstanding job over the time that he has been with the city at the golf course. He came in at kind of a very instrumental time for the golf courses, has made a lot of improvements there. I'm really happy that he is still going to be with the city and we still have his knowledge base for the golf courses. I'm also very excited by the applications that we are receiving for the superintendent job are really outstanding. There's a lot coming in from a lot of extremely good courses across the country, and actually some people even from courses in Asia and South America. So we're getting a very heavy applicant pool, and I think we will have a good replacement. But as I said, Scott still here, so congratulations to him and perhaps commiserations. And that's it.
Thank you. Questions? Moving on,
quick
item
one.
J.
Mike has a- Mike
Huh?
has
Oh,
a
I'm sorry,
question.
Michael.
Sorry, the maintenance capital improvements millage, NAP, and NAP is not separated out from that, correct?
They
The only reason
are-
I'm asking is because of the submissions that came in. There were two different sort of information sheets. One was more closely tailored to NAP, one
Yep.
was, I was just making sure that was all one thing.
Yes, that is correct. So they are entirely funded by the park maintenance and capital improvements millage. There's an informational page about who they are and what they do and the fact that they are and always have been entirely funded by the millage.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Item J, we don't have one of those today. Item K, we don't have those. Item L, public commentary. Is there any member of the public who'd like to speak?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, could I just interrupt briefly?
Certainly, you're a member of the public.
I do not want to interrupt a public meeting. I do get fascinated by these things, but I would like to just claim my chair quickly, and I did not want to interrupt the meeting.
Yes, please. Please, wait a minute, do you have any ID on you?
No, a council member can vouch for me, as can Colin, and we had a long night last night.
Please.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll get to that. So no public commentary, but you're kind of a member of the public. What's your
I had
announcement?
a comment. I had an announcement that I forgot to mention before you announced that. So, go on. On this Saturday, National Public Lands Day, the National Public Lands is this Saturday, and one of the sites will be the Leslie Science and Nature Center. It's again presented by Toyota. After 20 years, they've been the presenting sponsor for all National Public Lands Days across the country. If anybody wants information, they can go to the neefusa.org site to look at Leslie Science Center workday or any other workdays in Washtenaw County if they want to come and give their time. The one at Leslie Science Center is on Saturday from 9 to 2 o'clock.
Thank you. The transmittals are attached. We're not going into closed session. Item O, our favorite item, we stand adjourned. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Pretty good time. Colin, I was going to ask about this. When this is for November, are we going to, there's going to be something to letting folks know about